The dust on Ash Vale tasted like rust. And regret, Owen Briggs kicked through. Another pile of debris, his scanner, clicking steadily as it logged. Salvageable materials, 3 months on this. Dead colony world, and he still found. The silence unnerving, most abandoned. Places had wind or settling structures. To break the quiet, Asheville just sat. There frozen in the moment, everyone fled. His crew worked 2 sectors over, pulling copper from the residential district. Owen preferred the research quarter, less personal items to catalog, fewer reminders that real families had built lives here before the reactor. Failure turned their home into a hazard zone. He moved through what remained of a laboratory, noting intact equipment. That might fetch decent credits of the salvage markets. The sound stopped in mid-step, faint, barely audible over his breathing apparatus, but definitely there. A rhythmic scraping, then silence. Then again Owen killed his scanner and listened. The sound came from deeper in the building, past a collapsed archway that his initial survey had marked as structurally unsound. Smart money said, walk away. Probably just thermal expansion in the wreckage, metals settling as the day cycle heated the ruins. Owen had 3 rules for staying alive in salvage work. 1. Never work alone without telling someone your position. 2. Always trust your equipment readings. 3. If something feels wrong, it probably is. That he checked his comm. His crew knew his location. His structural scanner showed amber warnings, but nothing critical. And the sound came again, more insistent now. Almost desperate, Owen squeezed through a gap in the fallen archway, playing his light across twisted support beams and shattered research pods. The Salvani had shared this facility with human scientists before the evacuation. Dragon-sized equipment mixed with human workstations, creating a strange archaeological layer cake of 2 species trying to build something together. The scraping grew louder. Owen traced it to a corner where ceiling panels had collapsed into a pyramid of debris. His light caught movement, a flash of deep blue scales beneath the rubble. He moved closer, then froze at a salvi hatchling lay trapped under a support beam. 1 wing bent at an angle that made Owen WSC. The little dragon looked maybe 6 months old if he remembered the species data correctly. Its scales had not yet developed the armored ridges of an adult, leaving it vulnerable as a human infant. Big amber eyes tracked Owen's approach, filled with pain and something close to hope. Owen keyed his comm. No response. The collapsed structure was blocking his signal. He could go back, get the crew, bring proper lifting equipment. The safe choice, the smart choice. The hatchling made a sound, a weak chirp that reminded Owen of baby birds he had rescued as a kid back in Queensland. Its breathing came fast and shallow. Shock, maybe internal injuries. How long had it been trapped here? Days, weeks. He set down his pack and approached slowly, hands visible. The hatchling watched but did not pull away. Owen examined the debris pile. The main beam was pinning the dragon's lower body and wing. Smaller pieces had fallen on top, but they were manageable. He started moving them carefully, talking in a low voice, the way his gran had taught him with frightened animals. Structural scanner on his belt started beeping. Amber shifted to red. Owen glanced up and saw the problem. The support beam trapping the hatchling was load-bearing, and it was slowly giving way. Worse, exposed power conduits ran through the ceiling above them. Still carrying residual charge from emergency. Batteries that should have died months ago. Sparks dripped steadily from a junction box directly overhead. Owen did the math instantly. If he tried to lift the beam properly, the ceiling would come down. If he left to get help, the hatchling would not survive long enough. And those power conduits were building toward a discharge. He could see the energy readings climbing on his scanner. The hatchling's eyes met his. There was no accusation there, no demand, just a quiet acceptance that this was how things ended, trapped alone in the dark of an abandoned world. Something in Owen's chest tightened. This kid had been left behind, forgotten in the chaos of evacuation, nobody coming back, nobody even knowing to look, just like those baby birds that fell from nests, helpless and alone, unless someone bothered to care. That he made his decision without really thinking about it. Owen braced himself against stable debris and heaved the support beam up. With both hands, the strain hit. Immediately, muscles screaming, but he held it. The hatchling understood instantly and began dragging itself free, damaged wing trailing behind. The junction box above them exploded in a shower of sparks. Owen saw the plasma discharge lance down in his peripheral vision, a blue-white streak of death, heading straight for the struggling hatchling. Tom seemed to slow. He could let go of the beam, maybe dive clear. The hatchling was almost free, almost. Not far enough. Owen released the beam and threw himself sideways, his body covering the small dragon completely. The plasma hit him square in the back. Pain erupted through every nerve. A white-hot agony that turned his scream into something primal. His environmental suit vaporized, flesh burning, nervous system overloading. Through the pain he felt, the hatchling beneath him felt its small body pressed against his chest. Safe, protected, he had managed that much at least. The world began to fade, edges going dark and fuzzy. Owen's last clear thought was hoping the little dragon would figure out how to get out from under him once the debris settled. Hoping someone would eventually find it. Hoping it got a chance at a real life. After this nightmare, then the darkness took him completely, and Owen Briggs knew nothing at all. Consciousness returned in fragments. First came sensation, a gentle warmth against Owen's skin that felt nothing like the burning agony he last remembered. Then sound filtered in, soft harmonics that resonated in his chest more than his ears. Finally, light penetrated his closed eyelids, steady in blue-green rather than the harsh white of his salvage lamps. Owen opened his eyes to an unfamiliar ceiling, smooth stone curved overhead, covered in patterns that glowed with bioluminescent light. The patterns shifted slowly, like breathing, creating waves of illumination that moved across the chamber. He tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. His back erupted in sharp protest, forcing him down again. A face appeared above him. Human. Thankfully, though Owen had never seen this particular woman before. She had gray streaks in her dark hair and the weathered look of someone who spent serious time off-world. Her smile carried relief. Easy there, hero. You have been out for 3 weeks. Your back is still knitting together. Her accent marked her as someone from the outer colonies, words clipped and efficient. Where Owen managed his throat raw, saw veiny mountain settlements about 200 km from where you decided to become a lightning rod. She held up a water container with a straw. Name's Ruth. I trade with the dragons. help translate. When needed, they brought you here after. They found you, Owen drank carefully. Pieces clicking together in his foggy brain. The hatchling, Ruth's smile. Widened. Pip is fine, broken wing. Some bruising but alive thanks to your dramatic heroics. Kid visits you every day, usually brings half the settlement's juveniles with him, as if summoned. A blue-scowled head poked around the chamber entrance. The young saw Vaney from the research facility, looking significantly healthier than the last time Owen saw him. The hatchling chirped something that Owen's brain registered as excited sounds, then disappeared back into the corridor. Words out. You were awake, Ruth said. Brace yourself. Within minutes, the chamber entrance filled with salvi of various ages and sizes. They did not enter, just watch from the doorway and the corridor beyond. Their gazes carried an intensity that made Owen deeply uncomfortable. He had seen people look at monuments and memorial sites with similar expressions, reverence, mixed with something Owen could not quite name. They have been doing that since you arrived, Ruth explained, noticing his discomfort. Just watching. The Salvi Council has been in continuous session for 2 weeks, which apparently never happens. They won't tell me what they're debating, though. Dragon politics goes deep. Over the following days, Owen regained mobility. The Salvi medical technology had saved his life, though the healers made it clear through Ruth that his injuries had been catastrophic, 2nd and 3rd degree burns across his entire back, electrical damage to his nervous system, 2 cracked vertebrae. By human medical standards, he should have died at the scene or been paralyzed for life. Instead, he walked the mountain settlements with increasing steadiness, always accompanied by Pip. The young dragon had appointed himself Owen's constant companion, chattering in a mix of salvi harmonics and broken human standard that Owen found surprisingly easy to follow. Pip asked endless questions about Earth, about oceans and trees, and why humans walked on 2 legs when for seemed more stable. The other Salvani maintained their respectful distance, watching but rarely speaking. Owen caught them leaving small offerings outside his chamber: polished stones, carved crystals, strips of treated leather worked with incredible detail. Ruth explained these were gifts of honor, though she seemed puzzled by the sheer volume. I have traded with the Salvani for 8 years, she told Owen one evening. Never seen him act like this. Whatever you did back there, it meant something big in their culture. Owen shrugged immediately, regretting it as his healing back twinged. Just help the kid who needed help. That's what makes it interesting, Ruth said thoughtfully. You didn't think about it, you just acted. On the 15th day of his recovery, an elder Salvi finally approached Owen directly. The dragon was massive, easily 3 times Pip's size, with scales that had shifted from blue to deep gray with age. His movements carried the careful weight of someone used to being listened to. Hip for once fell silent and dipped his head respectfully. Ruth appeared quickly, carrying translation devices that would convert the Ellers's harmonics into human speech. The dragon waited patiently while she sat up, then spoke in deep, resonant tones that vibrated through the stone floor. The device rendered his words with a slight delay. I am called Granite, keeper of kinship records. I speak for the Council of Ledges. Owen nodded, unsure of proper protocol. Owen Briggs, pleased to meet you. Granite's large amber eyes studied Owen for a long moment, when he spoke. Again, his harmonics carried what the device translated as careful consideration. We have observed you. Since your arrival, Owen breaks. We have witnessed your healing, your interactions with young Pip, your response to our presence. The council has debated the meaning of what you did. In the collapsed facility, I just helped. The kid, Owen said, feeling like he was missing something important. No. Granite replied, and the finality in his tone left no room for argument. You placed yourself between certain death and a child of another species without hesitation, without expectation of reward or recognition. You sacrificed yourself so that one of our young might live. The elder dragon moved closer, his massive head now level with Owen's. I ask you directly, Owen Briggs, so that all may hear your answer. Do all humans understand the weight of witness, sacrifice, or only you? Owen blinked, completely lost. He looked at Ruth, who shrugged helplessly. The question felt like a trap, though he could not figure out how. Around them, dozens of Salvi had gathered, silent and intent. I don't know, Owen said. Honestly, I just saw someone who needed help. Didn't really think past that. Granite exchanged glances with several other elders who had moved into the chamber. The harmonics that passed between them carried no translation, too rapid and complex for the device to parse. When Granite turned back to Owen, something had shifted in his expression. Then we must teach you what you have done, the elder said, and you must teach us what it means that you did not know. Physical therapy consumed Owen's mornings. A Salvani healer named Slate put him through exercises that tested his recovering back and nervous system. The dragon was patient but firm, insisting Owen push through discomfort without crossing into actual pain. By the third week, Owen could move without constant awareness of his injuries. Afternoons belonged to Pip. The young dragon had taken it upon himself to educate Owen about Salvi culture, dragging him through the mountain settlements and explaining everything with enthusiastic detail. Owen learned that the Salvani built their cities inside mountains because their ancestors have been cave dwellers. He learned that their harmonic language could communicate through solid rock, allowing conversations across vast distances. He learned that Salvani children stayed with their mothers until their first flight, usually around age 2 in human years. My mother died in the evacuation, Pip said one afternoon, his usual chatter quieting. They sat on a ledge overlooking the settlement's main cavern, watching adults saw Vaney glide between levels. She got me to the transport ship but went back for others. The reactor went critical before she made out. Owen felt his chest tighten. I am sorry. Pip's wing, still healing but improving daily, brushed against Owen's shoulder. The evacuation was chaos. Nobody realized I got left behind until the ships reached the safe zone. By then, Asheville was quarantined. They thought I died with the others who did not make it out. How long were you in that building? For months, maybe 5. I lost count. Found a supply cache that kept me fed. But I got careless near the end. Didn't see the structural damage before the ceiling came down. Pip looked at Owen with those big amber eyes. I thought that was it. Thought I would just fade out alone in the dark. You didn't. Though, Owen said firmly, you're here. You're safe because of you. Pips's harmonics carried a weight that the young dragon seemed too small to hold. You didn't know me, didn't know if I was important or just some random hatchling. You acted anyway. Ruth found them that evening, her expression serious. The council wants to see you, both of you. It's time. The Council of Ledges met in the deepest chamber of the mountain settlement. The space was enormous, carved from natural stone and polished smooth over generations. Hundreds of salvi filled the chamber, arranged on ledges that spiraled up the walls. Complete silence greeted Owen and Pip as they entered. Granite stood at the chamber's center, flanked by 6 other elders. Their scales range from deep gray to silver, marking them as the settlement's most senior members. The translation devices have been set up in advance, allowing the council's words to reach Owen clearly. Owen Briggs Granite began, his harmonics resonating through the chamber. We have called you here to offer something that has never been given to an outsider of our kind. The council has debated this matter thoroughly. We are unanimous in our decision. Owen shifted nervously. Pip pressed against his leg, offering silent support. In Salvani culture, Granite continued, words are wind. They cost nothing to speak and less to forget. What matters is action, particularly action witnessed by others. We build our society on witness deeds and the obligations they create. Another elder, her scales pale blue, spoke next. When a Salvani risks their life for another, bond is created. The saved owes a saver. Yes, but more importantly, all who witness the act recognize the bond. It becomes part of our kinship records, written into our history. A third elder added, you threw yourself before death to save our young. Dozens witnessed this through the security systems that still functioned in the research facility. Your sacrifice was absolute, expecting nothing, asking nothing in return. Granite stepped closer to Owen. In our culture, such an act toward a juvenile whose parent has passed creates a specific bond, whether you understood this or not, whether you intended it or not. You claimed responsibility for young Pip's life when you shielded him with your own body. Owen's stomach dropped. I didn't mean to claim anything, I just couldn't watch him die. We know, Granite said, and his tone carried something like approval. That is what makes this unprecedented. You acted from instinct, from a compassion that required no cultural framework or expectation of reciprocation. This has created a dilemma for the council. The pale blue elder spoke again. We cannot ignore witness sacrifice. Our entire society is built upon honoring such bonds, but you're not Salvi. You are not part of our kinship ledgers. We have no framework for incorporating an outsider into our deepest cultural practices. Until now, Granite said, the council offers you a choice. Owen Briggs, we offer you formal recognition as Pips's guardian within Salvi kinship records. You would be acknowledged as the one who saved him, who took his mother's place. In the moment of his greatest need, you would be bound to him and he to you, with all the responsibilities and honors such a bond entails. Owen looked down at Pip, who stared back with hope so naked it hurt to see. What does that actually mean in practical terms? Ruth translated the question, though Owen suspected she already knew the answer. Granite's response came measured and clear. It means you become responsible for Pip's well-being until he reaches maturity. It means the settlement recognizes your authority in matters concerning him. It means every Salane who witnessed your sacrifice and every Salvani who learns of it through our Records will consider you bound by honor. To this child, and it means the pale blue elder added that we become responsible for you as well. The bond flows both ways. Your well-being becomes our concern. Your needs become our obligation. You would not be Salvi, but you would be kin. The weight of it settled over Owen like a physical thing. This was not some honorary title or symbolic gesture. They were offering him a genuine place in their society, complete with real obligations and expectations. He barely understood. What if I say no? Owen asked quietly. That granite harmonics carried no judgment. Then we would understand. Human culture may not allow for such bonds across species. We would honor your choice and bear you no ill will. Pip would be cared for by the settlement as he has been since his mother's death. Owen looked at Pip again. The young dragon's eyes were wet, though he held himself with dignity. Beyond his years, waiting for Owen to decide his future, just like he had waited in that collapsed building, hoping someone would care enough to help. Can I have time to think about it? Owen asked. The human trading post on Asheville's surface felt cramped after weeks in the Salvani mountain settlements. Ruth had given Owen her spare quarters, a box-like room with a cot, a desk, and a window that looked out over the dead colony's ruins. He sat by that window now, watching the sunset over empty streets and abandoned homes. Ruth brought him coffee, real earth coffee that must have cost her serious credits. She sat across from him, waiting patiently while he organized his thoughts. What do you know about Salvi? Kinship bonds, Owen asked finally. Ruth sipped her own coffee, considering. Not as much as I should. Probably I trade with them, but that's surface level interaction. They keep their deeper cultural stuff pretty private. What I do know is that they take bonds seriously. When a Salvi makes a promise or accepts an obligation, they follow through. It's not like humans where we can back out if things get complicated. For them, witness commitments are absolute. So if I accept this guardian role with Pip, I'm locked in. No changing my mind. Later, pretty much. Ruth leaned forward. But here's the thing, from what I understand, they're locked in too. You wouldn't just be taking on responsibility for Pip. They would be taking on responsibility for you. Food, shelter, protection, support, whatever you need, the settlement provides. It's mutual obligation, not servitude. Owen thought about that. Sounds like a good deal for me. Then I get a whole civilization backing me up, and all I have to do is look after one kid who I already like. It's more complicated than that, Ruth said carefully. You would be binding yourself to alien customs that might conflict with human law. What if Earth authorities decide they need you for something? What if the Salvani call on you to honor some obligation you don't understand? You would be trying to exist in two different cultural systems at once. Is that impossible? Ruth smiled slightly. No hard though. I've seen traders try to go native with various species, so manage it. Others end up belonging nowhere, fitting into neither culture properly. You have to be flexible and tough to walk that line. Owen stared out at the ruins. I sent messages to Earth, to my family, to the salvage company, to some government offices that Ruth said I should notify. Figured I should at least tell people what's happening. Get any responses yet? A few. My sister thinks it's amazing. She has always been into xenobiology. Loves the idea of human alien family structures. My dad is worried I'm getting into something over my head. The salvage company lawyers are trying to figure out if this affects my employment contract. Owen laughed without much humor. The government types are just confused. They keep asking if I need extraction. Do you? Owen did not answer. Immediately, he thought about Pip's face. When the council made their offer, he thought about those 4 months the kid spent alone in the dark, thinking nobody cared enough to look for him. He thought about his own instinct in that collapsed building, the absence of hesitation when he threw himself in front of that plasma discharge. When I was 10, Owen said quietly, I found baby birds that fell from a nest during a storm, 3 of them barely feathered. My gran said they probably would not make it, that nature was cruel sometimes. She would have let them die, but I couldn't do that. I kept them warm, fed them with an eyedropper every 2 hours. 2 survived, grew up and flew away eventually. What's your point? I've always been like that. See something suffering, I have to try to help, can't walk past it. Gran used to say I was too soft for the world, that I would get hurt trying to save things that could not be saved. Owen looked at Ruth. She was right about the getting hurt part. I got scars from helping injured animals, from pulling people out of dangerous situations, from a dozen stupid decisions where I acted before thinking, but I'm still here. And those things I tried to save, most of them made it because someone bothered to care. Ruth nodded slowly. You're going to accept, aren't you? Probably. But I want to understand what I'm getting into first, really understand, not just the broad strokes. They spent the next 2 days researching. Ruth contacted other traders who worked with the Salvani, academics who studied their culture, even a human anthropologist who had spent 5 years living in the settlements. Owen absorbed it all, building a clear picture of what Salvani kinship actually meant. He learned that guardian bonds were not ownership. Pip would not be his property or servant. Instead, Owen would be recognized as having authority in matters affecting Pip's well-being and development, education, health, decisions, major life choices. But Pip retained autonomy and could contest Owen's decisions before the community if they felt it necessary. He learned that the bond created reciprocal obligations. If Pip needed something, Owen was expected to provide it or find someone who could. But equally, if Owen needed something, Pip and the settlement were obligated to help. Neither party could simply abandon the other when things became inconvenient. He learned that Salvani took witness bonds so seriously that breaking one was considered worse than murder. A murderer might have reasons, might be acting from temporary madness or self-defense. Someone who broke a witness bond was consciously choosing dishonor, rejecting the foundation of Salvani society. On the 3rd day, Pip came to the trading post. Ruth must have told him where Owen was staying. The young dragon looked nervous, his tail twitching in a way that Owen had learned meant anxiety. You do not have to say yes, Pip said. Without preamble, I know the council made it sound important, but I'll be okay either way. The settlement takes care of orphans. I won't be alone. Owen gestured for Pip to sit. The dragon settled on his haunches, wings tucked tight against his body. You came all the way up here to tell me that I did not want you to feel trapped. What you did in the research facility, that was enough. You gave me my life back. I cannot ask for more than that. What if I want to give more? Pip's head tilted. Confused, why would you, honestly? Because walking away from you now feels wrong. I didn't take that blast so you could survive alone. I did it so you could have a real life with people who care about you, who will be there when you need them. Owen leaned forward. I like you, kid. You're smart and funny. And you show me things about your culture that I never would have understood otherwise. These past few weeks following you around the settlements, learning from you, that's been good. I don't want to stop. Pips's harmonics carried something that sounded like hope mixed with disbelief. You want to be my guardian, actually want it, not just because the council offered. Yeah, Owen said, surprising himself with how certain he felt. Doll, I'm still going to ask you a bunch of questions and probably make mistakes, because I don't fully understand Salvani culture, but I want to try if you will. Be patient with me. The young dragon launched himself at Owen, wrapping wings and forelimbs around him in what was unmistakably a hug. Owen hugged back, carefully, mindful of Pip's still healing wing. They stayed like that for a long moment. When Pip finally pulled back, his amber eyes were bright. I will teach you everything, every custom, every tradition, every detail. You will be the most educated human guardian in Salvi history. Owen laughed. I'm probably the only human guardian in Salvi history. Then you will also be the best, Pip declared with absolute confidence. That evening Owen sent one final message to Earth. He kept it simple, explaining his decision and asking his family to trust that he knew what he was doing. He told them he would visit when he could, that he was not abandoning his human life, just expanding it to include another family as well. Then he contacted Ruth and asked her to inform the council. He was ready to accept their offer. He was ready to become Pips's guardian, to join the Salvani kinship records, to bind himself to a culture he barely understood but deeply respected. He was ready to honor what he had started when he threw himself in front of that plasma discharge. Ruth smiled when he told her, "You're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Can it be both?" Owen asked. With you, probably. The ceremony took place 7 days later, giving the Salvi time to prepare and Owen time to get properly nervous. Granite had explained the process through Ruth's translation, but understanding intellectually and experiencing emotionally were different things. Owen would be walking into something that had never been done before, creating precedent that might affect human sane relations for generations. Ruth helped him prepare, insisting he wore clean clothes and actually comb his hair. For once you're about to become part of their historical record, try not to look like you just crawled out of a salvage heap. The ceremony chamber was the deepest place in the mountain settlement, carved from stones so old it predated the Salvani spacefaring era. Bioluminescent patterns covered every surface, pulsing in rhythms that Owen was starting to recognize as significant. Hundreds of Salvani filled the space, representatives from settlements across the planet. Word had spread fast. Pip waited at the chamber center, looking tiny and nervous, when Owen entered. The young dragon's whole body relaxed with visible relief. They stood together facing the council elders, who formed a semicircle before them. Granite spoke first, his harmonics carrying through the chamber with perfect clarity. The translation devices rendered his words for Owen's benefit, but somehow Owen felt he understood the harmonics themselves on some level. Deeper than language, we gathered to witness a bond never before recorded in our kinship ledgers. Owen Briggs, human of Earth, acted to preserve the life of Pip, orphan child of our people. His sacrifice was absolute, witnessed by many, asking nothing in return. Today, we acknowledge this bond formally, granting Owen place in our records as guardian and protector. The pale blue elder stepped forward, carrying a small crystalline container. Inside, Owen could see what looked like amber, perfectly clear and slightly luminous. The bonding ritual requires exchange from Pip, scale freely given, representing his trust and acceptance. From Owen, blood freely given, representing commitment and shared life. Pip approached the container first. With surprising solemnity, the young dragon extended his forearm, a single scale from just above his wrist. The scale glimmered blue-green in the chamber's light. Pip placed it carefully in the amber dot. Owen's turn. The elder handed him a small blade clearly designed for this purpose. Owen pressed it to his thumb, drawing a single drop of blood that fell into the container beside Pip's scale. The moment Owen's blood touched the amber, something unexpected happened. The substance began to glow brighter than the bioluminescent patterns surrounding them. The light built in intensity, turning from soft blue to brilliant white. Harmonic frequencies filled the chamber, resonating through stone and bone alike. The salve reacted immediately. Wings snapped open in surprise. Harmonics of shock in it rippled through the assembled witnesses. Granite's eyes widened, his usual composure cracking. The glow eventually subsided, leaving the amber crystal pulsing with soft light. Granite approached the container slowly, studying it with obvious amazement. He exchanged rapid harmonics with the other elders, too fast and complex for the translation devices to follow. When Granite finally turned back to Owen, his expression carried something close to reverence. In all our recorded history, the bonding crystal has never responded so strongly. The light indicates depth of commitment, strength of bond. What we just witnessed rivals parent-offspring bonds, the deepest connections our people know. Owen looked at the glowing crystal, then at Pip. Is that good or bad? The pale blue elder answered her harmonics, carrying wonder. It means the bond you feel toward Pip is not obligation or duty. It is genuine kinship, recognized at a fundamental level. Your body, your very biology, acknowledges this connection. Ruth, translating from the chamber's edge, added her own interpretation. I think what they're saying is that you don't just accept responsibility for Pip. You actually care about him the way a parent cares for a child. The crystal is reading that somehow. Pip looked up at Owen with those big amber eyes, now slightly wet. Owen put a hand on the young dragon's shoulder. Of course I care about him, that's the whole point. But humans are not supposed to bond with other species at this depth, another elder said, his harmonics carrying fascination. We assumed your capacity for kinship would be limited to your own kind. This suggests otherwise. Granite lifted the glowing crystal carefully, holding it for all to see. We have learned something profound today. Humans possess the capacity to form true kinship bonds across species barriers. This is extraordinarily rare in the galaxy. Most species can cooperate with others, even feel affection, but to bond At a biological level, to have one's body recognize another species as kin. That is precious. The ceremony continued. With more formality, the crystal was sealed and placed in the kinship archive, a vast chamber where thousands of similar crystals represented bonds spanning centuries. Owen and Pip were led through a series of ritual responses, witnessed by everyone present. Through it all, Owen felt the weight of what he had committed to settling over him like a cloak. But when he looked at Pip, saw the joy and security in the young dragon's expression, Owen knew he had made the right choice. The celebration afterward was unlike anything Owen had experienced. Salvani celebrations involved music created through harmonized wing beads, dozens of dragons working in perfect coordination to produce complex melodies. Food came from multiple worlds, dishes that the settlements had collected during their spacefaring centuries. Stories were shared through projected memories, a technology that allowed groups to experience recalled moments together. Owen found himself standing in someone's memory of Asheville before the evacuation, seeing the colony as it had been at its height, humans and Salvi working side by side, building something beautiful together. Then the memory shifted to the evacuation, the chaos and terror as the reactor failed. He saw Pip's mother getting her son onto a transport, then turning back into the facility. He felt her determination, her absolute commitment to saving others. Even as death approached, when the memory ended, Owen had tears on his face. Pip pressed against his side, sharing the grief. She would have liked you, Pip said quietly. She always said the best people were the ones who acted without thinking when someone needed help. Other Salvi approached throughout the evening, introducing themselves and offering formal acknowledgement of the bond. Owen tried to remember names and positions, knowing he would forget most by morning, but he appreciated the effort, the way the entire community was working to make him feel included. Near the end of the celebration, Granite pulled Owen aside. The Ellers's expression was serious again, the wonder from the ceremony replaced with thoughtful consideration. What you have done today goes beyond Pip, Granite said. Every Salvani who witnessed the bonding, everyone who saw that crystal's response now understands something new about humans. You have shown us that your capacity for compassion extends past your own species, that you can form genuine bonds with those who are fundamentally different from you. Is that important? Profoundly so. The galaxy has many species who cooperate out of necessity or mutual benefit. Few can truly join together, accepting each other as kin rather than allies. You have demonstrated that humans possess this rare capacity. Other species will take notice. Owen thought about that. I just wanted to help a kid who was in trouble. Granite's harmonics carried something that might have been amusement, yes, and that simple desire has created ripples that will spread far beyond this moment. You have changed how the Salvani see humans. That change will spread to others. Pip found them, then pulling Owen away to introduce him to more settlement members. As Owen was dragged back into the celebration, he caught Ruth watching from across the chamber. She raised her coffee cup in salute, a smile on her face. Owen raised his own cup in response, then let Pip lead him toward the next group of Salvi waiting to meet him. He was part of something larger now, connected to an entire civilization through witness, sacrifice, and genuine care. The path ahead would be complicated. He would make mistakes, stumble through cultural misunderstandings, struggle to balance his human nature with Salvi expectations, but he would not be alone. Pip would be there teaching and supporting. The settlement would be there, bound by honor to help him succeed, and somewhere deep in the kinship archive, a crystal glowed with unprecedented brightness, recording for all of Salvi history the moment a human learned what it meant to be truly seen. 6 months passed like water through fingers. Owen returned to salvage work. But everything had changed. His crew now included 3 young Salvani who had volunteered to work with him, citing interest in learning human salvage techniques. The real reason Owen suspected was that the settlement wanted to keep eyes on him, making sure their newly bonded guardian stayed safe. That he did not mind. The Salvani crew members were phenomenal workers. Their spatial awareness let them navigate unstable structures with confidence. Their strength made moving debris trivial. What took Owen's old crew weeks now took days. Salvage operations that had seemed impossible became merely difficult. Pip had grown substantially. The young dragon now stood nearly as tall as Owen at the shoulder, his wingspan already impressive, though not yet adult-sized. His broken wing had healed perfectly, leaving no trace of the injury that had brought him and Owen together. Pip insisted on joining the salvage operations whenever possible, claiming he needed to understand how his guardian spent his days. The real change was harder to quantify. Owen found himself thinking in terms of the settlement's needs rather than just his own. When he found valuable salvage, he considered whether the Salvani could use it before selling to outside traders. When planning jobs, he factored in time to visit the mountain settlements. Between operations, his life had expanded to include a second home, second family. Ruth had been right about the complications. Earth authorities were still confused about Owen's legal status. Was he an employee who happened to have alien dependents, a cultural liaison, something entirely new? Various government offices sent him forms that did not quite fit his situation. He filled them out anyway, doing his best to explain the unexplainable. His human family had adapted better than expected. His sister sent regular messages, fascinated by every detail of Salvani culture. His father had warmed to the situation after Owen video called with Pip present. Seeing the young dragon's obvious affection for Owen had eased his concerns. You always did bring home strays, his father had said with resignation and love. The morning the transmission arrived, Owen was inspecting a collapsed transit station with his mixed species crew. His communicator chimed with a priority flag, the kind reserved for emergencies. Ruth's face appeared on the screen, her expression grim. Owen, we have got a situation. Message came in from station called Farpent, way out in the tertiary arm. They have got a human researcher trapped in a collapsed crystalline mine. The local species calls themselves Fragments, are asking for you. Specifically, Owen's stomach dropped. Why me? Because they heard about what you did for Pip. Word spreads fast in certain circles. They want someone who runs toward danger for strangers. According to their message, they think a human might be crazy enough to attempt this rescue. Owen closed his eyes. He had known something like this might Happened, but he had hoped for more time. How bad is it bad? The researcher was studying crystalline formations when a seismic event caused a collapse. They are alive but trapped under extremely unstable structures. The fragments are silicon-based and too brittle to safely navigate the debris. They need someone with a human's flexibility and a solving approach. That's a tall order. It's why they asked for you. Ruth paused. Owen, you don't have to do this. Nobody expects you to become the galaxy's emergency responder. Before Owen could answer, Pip's voice cut in from behind him. We should help. Someone needs help. So he helped them. Owen turned to find Pip and the 3 Salvani crew members watching him with identical expressions of determination. The young dragon stepped forward, wings partially spread, in a gesture Owen had learned meant serious intent. You taught me that action matters more than words, Pip said. You showed me that helping others is not about what you get back. If someone is trapped and scared, we help them. That is what family does. Owen looked at his crew, both human and Salvi. They were all nodding. Even the humans who had initially been skeptical about working with aliens now showed complete solidarity. All right, Owen said to Ruth, tell her we are coming. But I'm going to need detailed schematics of the collapse site and someone who can brief me on fragment physiology. I want to know exactly what we are walking into. The journey to Farban took 2 weeks. Owen spent the time studying everything he could about the fragments in their home world. Silicon-based species were fascinating. Their bodies composed of interconnected crystalline structures that allowed them to communicate through light refraction. They were brilliant engineers, but physically fragile, unable to withstand the kind of stress that carbon-based species took for granted. The trapped researcher was named Prism, a human xenologist who had been working with the fragments for 3 years. The collapse had pinned them under a formation of unstable crystals that could shatter at any moment. Any rescue attempt risked bringing down the entire chamber. When they arrived at Farpoint, a delegation of fragments met them. Their leader, a being whose name translated roughly as clarity, refracted light in patterns that the translation devices rendered as grateful relief. We have heard of the human who shielded the Salvi child. We hope you might understand what we cannot do ourselves. Our researcher friend is trapped and we lack the physical resilience to attempt extraction safely. Owen studied the schematics with Pip and his crew. The situation was worse than he had imagined. The crystals pinning Prism were massive, grown over centuries into formations that could not simply be moved. Worse, seismic sensors showed continued instability. Another quake could happen at any time. We need to go in light and fast, Owen said. Small team, minimal equipment. If we can stabilize the immediate area around Prism, we can extract them before another collapse. Pip volunteered. Immediately, I am small enough to fit through tight spaces and strong enough to help lift debris. I go with you. Granite, who had insisted on accompanying the rescue mission, stepped forward. I will not risk the young one unnecessarily. This is dangerous even by human standards, which is exactly why I should go, Pip argued. Owen will take risks to save the researcher. Someone needs to make sure he doesn't do anything too stupid. That is what family does. Granite's harmonics carried resignation. The hatchling speaks truth. Very well, but you both were safety harnesses and maintained constant communication. The descent into the collapsed mine tested every skill Owen had developed during his salvage career. The crystal formations created a maze of razor-sharp edges and unstable weight distribution. One wrong step could trigger a cascade that would bury them. All Pip proved invaluable. The young dragon's spatial awareness let him navigate paths Owen would have missed. His strength allowed them to brace unstable formations while they worked. Together they moved through the collapsed site with careful precision. They found Prism 2 hours into the operation. The researcher was conscious, but clearly in pain, one leg pinned under a crystalline formation that had grown through the for itself. The person's eyes widened when they saw Owen. And Pip, you actually came, the fragment said. They asked, but I didn't think anyone would be crazy enough to try. This crazy seems to be my specialty, Owen said, already examining the formation pinning Prism. How's your leg? Broken probably, but I can still feel it. So that's something. Owen and Pip worked together using techniques they had developed during months of salvage operations. Pip braced the upper formation while Owen carefully cut through the crystal with precision tools. Every few minutes they paused, listening for signs of further collapse. Finally, mercifully, the last piece gave way. Owen pulled Prism free as Pip maintained pressure on the unstable formation above them. They moved as fast as Prism's injuries allowed, retracing their path through the crystal maze. The second quake hit when they were 50 m from the exit. The entire chamber shuddered, crystal formations shattering in cascading failure. Owen grabbed Prism and ran, trusting Pip to keep pace. Behind them, tons of crystalline debris collapsed inward, filling the space they had just vacated. They burst into the open air as the mine entrance collapsed. Completely behind them, fragment medics rushed forward to help Prism. Granite wrapped wings around Pip, checking for injuries with obvious relief. Owen sat on the ground, breathing hard, adrenaline still flooding his system. That had been closer than he wanted to admit. Clarity approached their crystalline body, refracting the setting sun into rainbow patterns. You came when we asked. You risked yourselves for one of your own who worked among us. We will remember this. Prism being loaded onto a medical transport called out weakly. Owen, can I ask you something? Sure, do. All humans act like this, running into collapsing mines for strangers. Oh, thought about Granite's question 6 months ago about Pip's faith that helping others was just what you did. He thought about his sister's fascination with cross-species bonds and his father's resigned acceptance that Owen would always bring home strays. Not all humans, Owen said honestly, but enough of us do that it might as well be a human thing. We see someone in trouble and we help. It's not complicated. Over the following weeks, messages started arriving from other species. For different civilizations reached out, asking about establishing formal cultural exchange programs with humans. They all mentioned the same thing: interest in human emergency response behavior, in the way humans seem to form protective bonds with other species. Ruth found it hilarious. You accidentally became the galaxy's ambassador for human compassion. How does that feel? Weird, Owen admitted. I just helped 2 people who needed help. I didn't mean to make a statement about humanity, but you did anyway, Pip said. Sprawled across the floor of Owen's quarters on the salvage ship, the young dragon had gotten too big for casual Hugs, but he still insisted on being nearby whenever possible. You showed them what humans are capable of, not through weapons or technology, but through choosing to protect others. Owen looked at the messages on his screen. Requests from species he had never heard of, asking questions about human nature and cultural values. Somehow his split-second decision in a collapsed research facility had become something larger than himself. You know what's funny, Owen said. 6 months ago I was just a salvage worker trying to make enough credits to maybe snorts retire early. Now I'm a Salvardian and apparently some kind of informal ambassador for human compassion. How did that happen? Pips's harmonics carried warm amusement. You took a plasma blast for a dragon hatchling and woke to unspoken honor. The rest just followed naturally. Owen laughed, reaching out to scratch the ridge above Pip's eye. The young dragon leaned into the contact, wings relaxing completely. Outside the viewport, stars wheeled past in their ancient dance. Somewhere out their species were talking about humans in ways they never had before, discussing human capacity for cross-species bonds, human willingness to risk themselves for others, human compassion that acted before thinking, all because one man saw a kid in trouble and couldn't walk away. Owen thought about his grand, about her warning that he was too soft for the world. She had been wrong. The world, it turned out, needed people who were soft in the right ways, who could look at suffering and choose to act, who could form bonds across impossible divides. That he had found his place, not in spite of his instinct to help, but because of it, and he had gained a family in the process. Both the young dragon currently using him as a pillow and the entire civilization that had witnessed his sacrifice and called it honor. The future would bring more challenges, more calls for help, more opportunities to prove that humans could be better than their worst impulses. Owen would meet them as they came, with Pip at his side and the weight of witnessed sacrifice guiding his choices. He would do it again, he knew. Take the blast, make the sacrifice, run toward danger when someone needed help. That it was just what you did when you cared. And Owen Briggs, guardian of dragons and accidental ambassador, cared more than he had ever thought possible.